Good day everyone, and this is my final episode of my Megaman X2 Let's Play. Now, this is the third X-Hunter stage, in which we will be taking on our very last X-Hunter, Agile. And he seems to have some sort of new power-up and upgrade, but we shall see what it's like at the end. Now, one of the things I want to mention, going through these stages, which I have called fun stages. And why do I call them fun stages? Are they fun? Yes, they are. But the thing is, compared to the other levels in this game, they're the only ones that really stand out. Or not really stand out, but were much better than the other stages. I'm going to say right now that I wasn't the biggest fan, and you probably could tell by my past commentary that I'm not the biggest fan of Mega Man X2 in terms of level design. Though unique, yes, and they had an own unique feel, which is really brilliant, to be honest. However, comparing it with X1 and X3, the levels weren't as good. They weren't as long or memorable. It may be to do with, for me, it might be to do with the music and such, but I just felt that they were too short, and then you didn't really digest them enough as much as, say, X1. The only reason why I'm using the Mega Man X1 as a good example of everything is because this game should be the one after X1, where it should improve on things and give us a nice snippet of things of what's possible. But I reckon it sort of falls short. These levels, however, they're really long and challenging, especially the fact that I should be able to get through that gap, but I can't because I don't have the upgrades to go through there. So I have to take the loser's way out and go down to the bottom and get hit. And you probably should, actually I should probably mention the fact that, again, this was one long run. And by this time I was bloody tired. Especially when I'm being jump dashing all the time and such like that, and getting a little bit reckless when it comes to going through the level. Yeah, I actually start pepping up again as soon as I start versing the bosses. But yeah, this game, not as memorable, I should say, because the level designs were very simple. Again, this game was a lot harder than X1, but again, difficulty doesn't always make things better, does it? It should have a nicer feel, which Mega Man X1 did have, and Mega Man X3 had as well. And the reason why I like Mega Man X3 stages a lot better than this, because he brings it back to the old Mega Man classic stages where, you know, everything felt like an endurance round and you sort of had to pay attention to your health and your lives. You were scared of going through levels because you had no lives. But we have our third X-Hunter here, by the way, and I died on purpose, to be honest. That was actually to be honest because I wanted to actually go through the boss with full health, and I didn't want to go back and grind for health, because that's just a bad idea and totally disinteresting. But here we have Agile, and they turn him into a giant finger trap. If you actually played Mega Man X2 and done all the optional bosses, you'll see that this guy was actually kind of cool. He had a nice little sword and it was actually a pretty fun boss here and there. But now they turned him into a thing that moves left and right. Sort of like that thing that you see from Breakout, or Alleyway, or Pong. I don't know. But the thing you gotta worry about are those three-dimensional missiles that shoot from the background. They're the hardest thing to avoid because, again, they're random and you don't want to be stuck on the wrong side. So the way I actually do things is go from left to right. For some reason that seems to follow a particular pattern. I got hit before because it didn't, but most cases it does. We can always stand up high on the actual wall to avoid them. But this boss is a pushover and there's nothing much to worry about. So much of a difference compared to the other two boss fights we just encountered. Very, very hard bosses, and this was just a nice relaxing boss for me at least. I can actually take things a lot simpler and sort of relax, because I know I have a bit of a boss rush coming up. And we have the fourth X-Hunter stage as well. Speaking of which, here's a bit of trivia. Originally there was supposed to be 4 X-Hunters in the game. It was supposed to be another female one, and it was supposed to be the 4 Guardians of Sigma. However, due to hardware limitations, they couldn't add it in, so they just added a boss rush at the end here, which looks exactly like the level in Mega Man X1, just before the Sigma fight. And you've probably seen it before, and you probably don't need me to actually show it again. But these are all the bosses. But this time I'm going to use my weaknesses, because it's really boring. And you'll see just how boring it can be when you actually use the weaknesses. You lose everything when it comes to seeing what the boss patterns are and developing a strategy. Again, it's more just a montage because I just edited everything out. Just to show that nothing really changes when it comes to hitting them with a weakness. And that's another point I want to make when it comes to these bosses. Let's compare these 8 Maverick bosses with X1 and X3 again, shall we? I just believe, and in my opinion, that the bosses in X1 had more life to them. Especially the fact that they weren't easier. Well, some of them were easier. Actually, in most cases that X2 bosses were a bit harder if you actually just go for a normal X Buster run. But in terms of variety, the actual abilities I use and everything, it's a little bit shallow compared to the other ones. And how cool was, say, the Storm Eagle fight compared to anything here? Or the Armored Armadillo, they had the best, patterns that you could actually play with in Mega Man X1. Or Sting Chameleon. Or even Boomerang Kawanga. They're all a lot more fun. And despite me saying that the 2 bosses, the 2 X-Hunter bosses before, were actually a lot more fun. That was what I like. Again, they weren't exactly harder, they were just more memorable. As well as the art style with these bosses, they seemed a lot cuter and less serious. Inafune wanted this game to be a lot more serious, which they did in X1 and X3, but this one they seemed a little cuter, as well as the enemies. Oh no! I swear, did I just screw up my editing? No, I didn't. This is the final level, which is a repeat of the same level from Magna Centipede. Lazy programming, or being just lazy in general? I wouldn't mind doing this if there were new things and new things in this level, but unfortunately there is not. Another thing I want to mention as well, you'll notice that there is actually more enemies and more life in X1. You can say the same with X3, but yeah, it just doesn't feel as strong as it was in X1, and I just thought it was just nostalgia, playing the very first one, but they dumbed things down a little bit. And this is the fight with Zero, the epic battle, as people would say. And look how epic this is. You reckon he's going to shoot 2 times and then swipe me with the sword? I don't know. Yeah. You reckon he's gonna, do a Hulk smash when he's near me? Yeah. Very, very, very predictable. In fact, this boss is actually stupidly easy. It's just a matter of fact that you're not, dodging everything all the time. It's the fact that you gotta endure this bloody pain when you're actually doing a no weakness run. You can kill this boss in 30 seconds, by the way, if you use the weakness, which is Flame Stag's actual weapon, where you can just sort of jump over his Mega Buster right there and just shoot him, and then he'll shoot again, and then you jump it, and vice versa, and rinse and repeat. But this one, it's actually a lot harder, because look how much my charge shot takes. And actually sped things up a little bit, because I think you've seen everything that he is to offer, without my thumb blowing up from bloody too much pressure on the damn charge button and the jump button at the same time. Which is why I changed the actual dash button to the shoulder buttons, because otherwise I'll be in complete agony. Ingenuity, Joey, that's the way it is. Here's another trivia for you. Inafune actually wanted Zero to be the protagonist of these Mega Man X series games, because he felt that he had the most connection with Zero. That's why I wanted to bring him back. He was actually supposed to keep dead, but again, he just thought it was so cool and he drove so many concept art for him that he had to bring him back. And here we have our final boss. Or final two bosses I should say. This is another boss rush. And notice that I wasn't giving a crap about my health. And here we're at it, boys and girls, the best fight in the game, in my opinion. Now this is what you call a boss fight in a Mega Man game. When you have such tight controls, you abuse them, and it makes everything feel so satisfying. Ooh. All his moves are actually pretty easy to dodge. It's the fact that he just uses them at random and really quickly. There is no set pattern to everything. You just gotta know what he's going to do and then act appropriately. I would say what kind of strategies to use against him, but I was having so much fun. And you can sort of see it. As long as you see, that's probably the hardest move to actually dodge. You just gotta make sure you time your jumps properly. Take it slow, and then the last jump, take it fast. And he's trying to copy Wolverine there, but I think everyone has said it who's done it. Mega Man X2 Let's Play. So Sigma, what do you think of DLC on your new games nowadays? He shakes his head in disapproval. Alright, now we have his last form right here. And I would say that this would be the hardest boss if you're doing a no weakness run. However, there is one thing that you might have noticed, which makes this very easy. Yep. All the enemies that he spawns spawn health. And this would have been a very enjoyable and very satisfying boss fight as well. It's the fact that he himself is actually a very long boss fight. And he's easy to actually avoid, but his attacks are bloody powerful. As you can see, the pattern right here is he'll do a laser strike there, throw up two enemies, go to the sky, or to the roof, and repeat. And you get this rhythm down easy. Only problem is this boss fight is long, so you gotta keep it up for a very long time. And let's just say when I say long time, I meant about 15 minutes. When you actually use his weakness, it takes about a minute. Which is my fault, but don't worry, I speed things up a little bit. And if you might see as well, in my run, I actually lose the rhythm a little bit. And that's what I sort of like. You know, it's keeping me on my toes. There's nothing more satisfying than, like, you know, getting a rhythm right perfectly, getting a timing right perfectly each time, but enduring the pain. And that's what it should be as well. You know, you're at the last sort of fight and you're physically getting endured by this onslaught of crap all over the place. And then when you beat the game, that's when you feel satisfied. And that's what a last boss should be. It should be absolutely grueling in both mental and physical state. And you can tell that he has no health bar as well, which makes things a little bit more difficult. Again, when it comes to Capcom programming, or Mega Man games, the satisfaction you get from hitting things is good, because every single time you actually hit him, and you have to hit him with a charge shot, everything is fuzzy and stuff like that, just giving you a nice feel of that you're hitting something. And that's something you actually need to employ for a boss fight like this, because you know it's really long. And you can tell that he changes his color as well, so you know you're not doing something wrong and just repeating and stuff like that. Again, all you need to use is the wide chain move, weapon, can't remember the name, to actually take him out in, say, 30 seconds. Because he's got no invincibility frames. But again, it's pretty hard. And again, it's the second use of the enhancement chip that this game had back in the day. And he's getting purple and everything, but here is my speed up. And just to help you guys not hear, spit up shots and explosions here and there, I spliced in a little bit of a soundtrack from another boss fight, I should say. Another big, very, 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 very hard boss. But he doesn't change up his abilities or anything. It's the same thing over and again. The only thing that he changes up is that move there, which isn't that hard to avoid as long as you go left and right and left and right. Again, speed up. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last boss. Were my hands killing? Yes. Was my brain sore? Yes. And was I satisfied? Hell yeah. But I should still mention that this game isn't as good as the other ones. Again, you might disagree, but it's just because, well, everything wasn't as nice compared to the other ones. It didn't capture that serious theme as the Inafune wanted when he created this game compared to the Megaman classic games. And the music was a lot more cheesier and cornier, whereas the sound design as well feels a bit soft compared to the other ones, which are really rough. But in terms of gameplay, they improved it a little bit from Mega Man X1 when they incorporated the actual extra weapons. Again, not as good as X1, but with having air dash and having the Giga attack and using the scanner sort of brings things back from, say, Metroid Prime and Super Metroid. But it was fun going through levels. Again, the levels weren't that very long though, unfortunately. And the use of optional bosses was nice. However, I reckon they didn't do it as well. They did it very well in Mega Man X3. So that's why I think that this is the most weakest game in the series. Not saying it's bad, it's brilliant. And I had a lot of fun playing it. But in terms of everything else, was it supposed to, build up from Mega Man X1? It didn't, all the way. But, was it able to stand against Mega Man X3? No, it's not. If you don't believe me, then play them back to back and you'll see what I mean by the bosses don't seem as memorable as Mega Man X1 with the whole colourful seriousness and how hardcore everything was in X3, especially the levels. But here we have it. Thanks guys for watching. This is the end. And I just want to make a point right here that every single Mega Man X ending is exactly the same. Open-ended, just so another sequel can actually pop in. Except for X5 obviously, which was supposed to be the last one. But the fighting will truly end now, because Inafune has left Capcom to create his own publisher and developer. Poor thing, because he didn't get to keep the Mega Man rights, and we'll maybe never see another Mega Man game again, so the fight has officially ended. And do I want it to end? No. Maybe the ending will stop when Capcom stop wanting money so much. But we beat Andross at the end, and we have finished the game. Okay, thanks guys for watching, and catch you next time.